Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you are. We already have a great panel today, ranging from panelists in UK, Netherlands, Dubai, and Singapore. So it's definitely a broad global session today. We would continue to expect attendees joining in. A topic for today it has been on giving insights around B2B marketplace and how we see them evolving, especially in the post-COVID world. What I'd like to do is to do a quick round of introductions and then hand over to the panelists for respective questions on this specific topic. So I'll use the sequence on my screen just to kind of give myself a perspective to kind of share. Starting off with, we have Christoph Meyer, who is the Director of E-commerce at SIG UK. Chris is a seasoned international leader managing product pricing, digital marketing, customer service, analytics, search, content. Chris, you have done quite a lot, so it's kind of a long list for me to kind of read out. But I know your experience definitely ranged quite broadly in both B2B and B2C propositions across Grainger, Walgreens, Boots, and so on and so forth. So really look forward for Chris giving your inputs on this topic. We have Richard Mather, who is the founder and principal consultant at Thinking Cap Consulting, delivering world-class pricing and commercial strategy for startup SMEs and e-commerce businesses. Rick has a large set of backgrounds, including wide spectrum, so supporting B2B, B2C organization, especially leading their pricing and commercial transformation. Most recently has been consulting Brady Corporation for their PPE, which is one of the PPE companies, and past experience include working with brands like RS Components, Nisbets, Asda, and Thomas Cook. Thank you, Rick, for joining us. Next, we have Cecil Stewart, who is the Global Product Director at Rubik's Group, responsible for master data management, product content enrichment strategies, and execution and implementation for the group's product database. He has worked with likes of Netherlands-based retailer Hema, as well as SS, Nike on their MDM strategy, in-store and online promotions, and product enrichment. Thank you so much, Cecil, for joining us.
Welcome.
Next, we have Daniel Stewart-Dexter. He's the head of new product induction and data governance at RS Components. His previous roles includes content and product governance, leading work at Argos Sainsbury's, especially defining their PIM strategy across channels. And last, we have Abhishek Ranjan joining us from Dubai. He is the head of commercial planning, pricing, assortment design, shoppability at noon.com, which is a Middle East largest marketplace. Abhishek has large scale experience working with internet blue chip and consulting companies like Flipkart, Dell, Wipro. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the panelists to joining us. We also have some of our internal team joining us to help support the Q&A, which includes Eric, Shante, Prash, and Anthony on the call. That's part of the clerks team to help me with the moderation. Great. So taking the discussion forward, so obviously marketplace has been one of the buzzwords, especially in the B2C space for quite some time. And now going from the perspective of how do we see that evolving both for B2C and B2B is what we will try to explore today. We have definitely seen a significant acceleration in the trend, especially in terms of changing customer buying behavior, changes in the demographics, changes in how companies want to move from their traditional models to more subscription consumption models, and so on and so forth. If you look at some of the recent reports, Forrester's predict that on a B2B side, around 17% of the transactions would go through an e-commerce or marketplace by 2023, and will continue to grow, post-COVID as well. So before we kind of start out and drill detail into what and how the company should be going around marketplace strategy, what I'd like all of you to kind of help me potentially define what does a marketplace for you mean for you, and how do you see that from your company's point of view. I know that between all of you. You kind of represent, manufacturers, distributors, online marketplace. It'll be great to kind of hear from you in terms of what does marketplace mean for you and how do you kind of define that to start off. If I might invite Abhishek to kind of kick us off, and then I'll ask others as well to kind of give their perspective.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. And thanks, Saurabh, first of all, for that warm introduction. I have got, a sort of said significant experience in building B2C marketplaces, right? And of course, my definition would be slightly biased towards it, but I would like to generalize it more so that, it becomes meaningful for every other similar use cases as well, right? So marketplace for me would mean a place where, buyers and sellers would meet, interact, transact on the products and services which sellers have to offer to buyers within a set of guidelines, right? And these guidelines are exactly what a marketplace is supposed to problem solve, right, as an infrastructure, right? And when I say guideline, I mean guidelines which help buyer seller in the efficient matchmaking, right? As a marketplace, the marketplace exists for driving that match by solving search and discovery, by solving trust, especially for B2B, right, where the order sizes are very huge, right? One cannot transact if the trust is not really mediated by a platform, right? And then building a lot of adjacent services around payment, around logistics infrastructure, and other financial products, right? Like offering, especially in the B2B environment, right? Offering, and also popular so much on, also popular on the consumer side also, right? Financial services like offering loan, offering free EMI, offering other flexible payment options, correct? So for me, the marketplace would be a ecosystem of all that, right? And that pretty much should be true for a lot of the B2B side of use cases as well.
Great. I'll probably ask Rick to kind of expand on that definition. Rick, especially you consulting so many organizations, how do you see marketplace kind of evolving, especially on the B2B side?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, look, from client side, and from a lot of perspectives, when you ask what does marketplace mean, by and large, it's Amazon and Google Shopping, and I don't know. The kind of questions that are being asked, not necessarily at board level, but from an organizational perspective, people are nervous about the opportunity because what's the benefit? It's traffic, it's connecting buyers to customers. So that's amazing. However, how on earth do we go about planning for the financial impact of that potential traffic on our business? How do we price for it? How do we select our range? All of that sort of stuff. And again, experientially, and I'm only talking from the perspective of the organizations I've worked with, it's been a case of pick one and experiment with it. By and large, it's been Amazon. Or somebody like a Mercateo, maybe in Europe. And I think the perception of how it will evolve varies. It's either an existing channel and one that's reliable, as Abhishek says, when there's trust there and you can transact and it's a decent proportion of your revenue, it's almost BAU. Then on the other side, it's a maybe 3 to 5 year play to get products out into the market that aren't necessarily available on marketplaces. Again, from experience, Nisbets, which is the UK's largest catering equipment supplier, we're approaching this from the perspective of getting in while others were not there for the next 3 to 5 years, taking the revenue and then watching it be commoditized. And again, that's the big worry from a board level perspective, is how is this going to affect my margins in the long term?
And on that point, Christoph, I know that especially some of the work that you have done with likes of Granger, especially thinking about eBay and Amazon spend, what do you kind of see marketplace meaning for B2B distributors of B2B companies?
Yes. Oh, sorry, is that for me?
Yeah, Christoph, if you can.
Oh, all right. Yeah, so I think from my perspective, what marketplaces mean from a B2B perspective is basically just creating further opportunities for eyeballs, so additional traffic for basically to expand on the existing channels that you already have, whether those are offline or online channels. And so we've used that, and whether it's my current employer SIG or previous companies I worked for, it's a great way to just increase that traffic. And again, it's to build on some of these points that Rick has said before, right? Is to experiment, to get out there and explore opportunities to I guess, so to speak, both sell your existing range, but then also to possibly sell new products that you're considering trying out, possibly in a low risk environment or lower risk environment that isn't necessarily your website, right? So it could be through eBay or Mano or Bonanza. So these are a variety of other marketplaces that haven't been mentioned yet, but these are also great places to sell your goods from a B2B perspective, since there are plenty of other B2B vendors already on there selling their supplies as well.
That's great. And Cecil, I know that Rubix as a company, and you may have not had done a lot of experiments with marketplace as of yet. Do you think that's an opportunity to kind of consider that as a viable option?
Yeah, I think like you said, I haven't been involved in the marketplace very much, but I think within our organization, I think it's along the lines of Christoph and Rick, is we see this as an opportunity for additional engagement in a digital channel with our customers. I mean, we are being approached more by our key accounts with this proposition. But we're looking at it, and I think along Rick lines is we're evaluating the opportunities on a case by case basis, and to see where are we going to start our expedition into the marketplace. But I think it's something that will be part of the sales and key account strategy for 2021 moving forward. So yeah, I think that's where we are right now. At this point in time, definite opportunity and something we need to explore with a little bit of caution.
Great. Daniel, I'll come back to you in just a bit. I just want to get a perspective from Abhishek, considering you have seen sellers and suppliers globally. What do you see as a primary benefit of using marketplace, or do you recommend considering marketplace as a viable strategy for a manufacturer or for B2B companies to have a marketplace of their own?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So look, now I would put that answer in two ways, right? What is the benefit for the customers, for which customers would come and engage themselves to the marketplace, and what really is the benefit of seller of goods and services, right, who sell those products to the marketplace, right? Let me pick up the second one. I think the interest from the second one is more, right? Now, if you are a seller, right, and if you want to increase your reach, you want to increase your business, you want to find out new customers or bring new products, right, very quickly to the market, I think there are some of the obvious benefit, right, which clearly reflects in all the marketplace model globally, right? It gives you a very, very quick go-to-market ability. You don't need to worry about your distribution strategy. There's a marketplace out there. You just have to go and list your products and do a great job in building those products. List them, understand what does it make to get you visibility in the marketplace, and once you do that, you are able to probably open a new customer segment for the new product which you have launched, right? Second, right, engaging with marketplace also helps you quickly break that barrier of trust, right? Especially when you are in a B2B buying and selling business, right, where your customers are also wholesalers or small retailers, right, and average order value and the transaction size are huge. It's important that buyer trust the sellers, right, and having a mediator rather than working yourself on creating that trust and hence putting more lead time into a business, right? If there's a marketplace which is available, which is giving you a reach, and which is also enabling you to solve the trust problem, I think for a B2B business, that barrier quickly goes away the moment you list yourself in the marketplace, right? So today marketplaces are there which which solves for the big size payment barriers, right? It gives flexibility to buyers on the customer side to probably split the deliveries, to split the payment, right, on behalf of the sellers, right? So all this, the lot of pain problem statements, right, which marketplace takes care of, and which immediately helps the supplier who are willing to list their products on the marketplace, right? Then I would say that overall, I would believe that marketplace would lower down the overall distribution cost for any B2B supplier, right? Rather than investing in creating your own marketing plan, your own distribution plan, right? If you rely on a marketplace which has got the traffic, which has got the engagement, right? The only thing you have to solve is how to make yourself visible on that marketplace by launching a product, right? And I would like to believe, and this is my experience, right, working with a lot of local and global supplier, right, and a lot of them have come back and they're willing to also probably put in more money, right, more products in the marketplace, because right, they are seeing significant benefit in their overall distribution cost. So I would say those are the obvious apparent some reasons, right, because of which suppliers should engage in a marketplace. Now the second important question is, if they engage, should they engage in building their own marketplace, or should they rely on a third party marketplace, right? And look, now that is a very pertinent question, right? Because the moment you engage in a third party marketplace, right, you are probably lending one of your key distribution strategy, right, to that marketplace, and the marketplace has all the distribution secret of your product. You don't have that. You are masked. You don't have ability always to understand your customer, right? And if you're building if you're a business which is small, agile, and you launch new products very often, right, if you don't get that customer data, it becomes difficult for you to really innovate and bring new products and launch new products, right? So if you build your own marketplace, all these limitations goes away, because you are directly interacting with the customer. You have ability to tell your story in your own way. You have ability to get the data, do all kind of analytics, build new products, increase awareness. And those are some of the reasons for which people prefer their own online marketplaces, right, which is vertically integrated to their manufacturing unit or to their sourcing unit. However, the cost of distribution is something which becomes a blocker there, right? Because you have to do everything what Amazon of the world does to bring the traffic on the platform, and that's a long and costly journey. And that's why I would say that a lot of the supplier who are small, who doesn't have that capital might, should potentially partner with a lot of these marketplaces and bring down the distribution cost, and just get into an arrangement where on a intermittent mode, you also get the data, the understanding the customer, and you can do more with your products. You can innovate more with your products, and launch new ranges, new kind of selections, and improve your businesses. So those would be some pluses, minuses, and some obvious reasons why you should definitely attach the marketplace. And marketplaces are here to stay, to increase the business and to bring overall benefit to the suppliers in the B2B world as well.
Great. And just an extension on that. So especially when it comes to a large scale range launch, right? Given your experience with selection and assortment management, what do you see as a marketplace operator? Where do you see that challenge when it comes to managing that range at speed or at scale with this diverse set of local, global suppliers?
Yeah. So, I mean, some of the problems I'm sure all the panelists would also be aware of, right, is, two of the biggest problem with every marketplace, especially an open marketplace, is grappling with is a, problem of counterfeits, right? So there's a lot of proliferation of fakes, duplicates, right, which are spoiling the perception of the platform, bringing the trust down, taking away the customers, right? So as you proliferate your selection, include more ranges, include more suppliers from your geography and from far-flung geographies as well, right? What happens is that in the absence of a proper curation technology, right, a technology or a process which helps you curate the sellers, curate the selection, you are very vulnerable to a lot of counterfeits and fakes being sold on the platform. And second pertinent problem is entire price gouging, right, which catches PR very fast, which gives you a bad PR very fast. So the pricing, how to really justify the pricing, because pricing is one of the key driver of demand, and a bad experience on pricing probably impacts customer much more than any other bad thing you do on the service to the customer, right? So how do you really manage that price perception when you are operating a semi-controlled or an open marketplace is another big problem statement, right, which we are definitely grappling with, and we are trying to find solution to as we are scaling our marketplace by bringing in more mid to low tier sellers as well from this geography and from geography outside as well, right? And while a marketplace exists to give choices to the customer, so that is something you cannot live with. And if you have to engage customers, bring more customers on the platform, your catalog and content has to expand. But if you do not solve these problems, what happens is that at the end, right, you end up losing a lot of the customers, and your overall cost of acquisition and retention on the customers become very huge, right? So I would say while you proliferate range of selection, the entire investment on the curation, how do you really put that efficient curation on the marketplace so that these key tenets of customer experience are not destroyed, is going to be very critical as you expand your selection. And that has been my experience with selection design here at Noon as well. How do we really solve those problem statements at scale?
That's an interesting point. And Daniel, here definitely I want to get your perspective, given the experience of kind of managing NPI, new product launches at scale. How at RS or other companies that you've worked with kind of manage that diversity in terms of making sure that range selections are launched at speed, considering the diverse set of customers or suppliers that you might be working with.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm also somewhat of a marketplace newbie, being mostly from a retail background. But one of the things that I have seen my current employer RS do, and that we did at Sainsbury's Argos, is take little elements of marketplaces like supplier direct fulfillment, for example, and use that to test what products might sell, where we might have gaps in the range, what there's an appetite for, in a relatively cost-safe environment. And the downside that comes with when you try and retrofit that into a traditionally commerce situation is that then you've got this difference between the experience of your own product and the experience of products from other sellers. And it's really important that you get this sort of consistency of data, consistency of user experience and availability and fulfillment. And so then to touch on how you scale up speed and volume, I think there's a few parts that are really important to it. So whether or not you're operating in a marketplace or a typical e-commerce space, it's really important that the content and data for everything on sale is consistent regardless of the source, right? Because your whole offer, the whole range has to be navigable and comparable within each other in order for customers to find and decide upon the right product. And so it's crucial, I think, the first thing to enabling scale and volume is that you enforce equal governance standards across all types of content and across all regions, regardless of what language you're mastering content in. I'm also a firm believer that then has to be backed up by having a content strategy for your attribution and digital media that allows the good, better, best differentiation of product within your range to speak for itself, because that then enables you to prevent speed coming at the expense of content quality. Because when you've got that clearly defined, if you've got the systems in place to define what you need, and then you've got a clear content strategy that says, I will always talk about these attributes and these features in this way, it enables you to reliably map the information that you need from multiple sources, from APIs, from what the supplier has proactively, so that for very little additional investment, you can ingest way more data, making it ready as soon as you want to launch a product. The information that you need is there, and so you can launch far more products at scale than if you were doing a sort of case by case. And so really pre-mapping the content that you need, having a really clearly defined standards, I think is the fundamental starting point to be able to do it at scale.
And do you think, Daniel, that there is a difference in content strategy while you're operating your own .com versus pushing out those same products on marketplace?
I mean, it's hard for me to talk on the marketplace side. My experience is more around expanding ranges operationally, specifically from a content and data point of view. But in terms of a difference in strategy, my opinion is no, not really. From my very niche perspective, I would say that really you want to start we're being orientated from the customer's point of view. You know, what do they need to be able to see to find and decide upon the right product? What information do they need at what point in their journey? How do they need to consume it? And all the same things that you do in a traditional e-commerce setting to enable that customer journey, I think become even more prevalent in a market space, in a marketplace where you're effectively needing, as I said earlier, to make products comparable that have effectively being sold by lots of different sources. So content strategy wise, I think it's probably even more important that you've got that clear definition of what information am I displaying, what benefits and features am I going to consistently pull out, how am I going to present that in a digestible way. For example, white goods are often like a distress purchase, so you need the information to be consumable really quickly, so they lend themselves really well to having more tabular data, maybe really clear icons to show certain features that it's got, so customers can pass lots of information and really find products comparable. So I guess, yeah, I don't think there's necessarily a difference in the strategy from my point of view, other than to say it becomes even more important to manage those standards and consistency in a marketplace.
Makes sense. And Cecil, I know from a product, especially from an MDM point of view, do you see again either a difference in strategy or especially content influencing quite a lot in terms of business performance? How has your been experience, especially now compared to maybe last year as well?
I tend to agree with Daniel. As you know, I don't see at this point in time the real need for a separate strategy around content for marketplaces and web shops. I mean, we have one single strategy which we apply to our products based, on a commercial perspective, taking into account the assortments of our customers. So I think, we would tend to stick with that strategy around our content as we move into the marketplaces. What we've seen over, I think, from 2019 to 2020, obviously with COVID, the situation, I think early in March, I think in the beginning of the year, we saw more of a need for velocity around content. Just making as much of our products available for our customer assortments, getting them into our digital channels. And I think as Daniel mentioned, if we look at good, better, best, it was velocity time. We needed to get the products out there. So the focus was really on, getting a product out there that met the basic needs. As we moved on, though, through 2020 and the COVID period, we started focusing more on specifics of the content for some specific segments. For PPE, for instance, became a very important product segment, I think, for the MRO industry overall. So I think the shift then started to move more to the breadth and depth and quality of the content that we were providing. And we've continued to see that as to, how can we use the content that we have to make it easier for our customers to move into the digital space, making sure that they can find the product, that they can understand the product, and that they're able to buy it. So the focus now is maybe a little bit less on velocity, and more focusing on the breadth and depth and quality of the content to really make sure that the customer is having a great, a really valuable experience in the digital space.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Cecil. I'm kind of just shifting the gear a bit here now. Now, if you look at, obviously the way what kind of works well for some of the marketplace, one of the core areas might be to look at how competitively are you pricing your product, what type of promotions are you running, essentially. And I know Rick and Abhishek, you have pricing to your heart. So let me start off with Rick on that point. Rick, what do you think would be the most recommended strategy, especially, or what are the top 3-4 priorities that you will suggest while operating on a marketplace, or and vice versa, if there's a difference in strategy for your own .com as well?
Yeah, sure. the majority of the strategies that I've helped develop have been fairly and squarely focused on the company's own channel and their website as their primary channel. And I think the majority of whether it's distributors or manufacturers are still thinking along the lines of our website is our home. It's where we start. It's where we build from. And then in terms of range expansion or putting products out into the marketplace, pricing is relatively easy on a lot of marketplaces because you can automate. So you know who else is selling the same stuff, you know what price they're selling at, you can match it, or you can be a couple of percent above, and it moves very, very quickly. RS components I know very well, 40, 50 million price changes a year. But that's a huge range. So it's not actually that prices are changing in an Amazon style per minute, per second, whatever it is. Other clients were in the space where they were changing price once a year and just rebooting the entire catalog. Very different ballgame with marketplaces, but I'd suggest automation would be the first way to handle that and manage it. But then understand what is the impact on your overall P&L from the perspective of share and product mix. And again, from a product mix perspective, what elements of your range do you want to put out onto marketplaces? Should it be your core range? Should it be MPI? Should it be ancillary categories that you're bringing into your range in order to drive gross margins or in order to collect profit? And I think that's one of the key things that you need to think about when you start this. Let's say you have a core range in PPE, but then you bring in signage as an ancillary. Maybe you don't want to drive your core there if what you have is not necessarily unique and is under significant margin pressures. But I think, by and large, when organizations are thinking about this stuff and are going into marketplaces, the catalog is fair game, and the content is there, so you may as well put that in there and experiment with it, but you need to have the resource in place to do the experiments. And again, this cannot be an afterthought. If you're going to do marketplaces, it needs to be part of your overall corporate strategy. It needs to have an organization around it. Otherwise, it will be priority number 2, 3, 4 every day. And all of a sudden, everybody's asking, where has the margin gone? What is driving this change? What is driving this business change? Have we done it by accident or did we do it intentionally? And I think there's probably quite a few examples and stories out there in the business world of people that have just said, oh, there's a new channel, let's switch it on and see what happens. Okay, but let's think about it seriously before we do it.
And so I think same point on for Abhishek, being a marketplace owner, do you think, and while competing with, say, other marketplaces as well, how you kind of, what are your top 3, 4 priority areas when kind of focusing on pricing strategy, being competitive, promotion strategy, and so on and so forth?
So I would give you a perspective as a customer and as a marketplace owner, and then I would probably speak about how would supplier possibly match to those expectations. Right now, as a customer and marketplace, right, we would definitely expect that for all the standard commoditized goods and services, right, your prices stay competitive. That's a kind of platform ask as well, and that's a customer ask as well, right? Because we're living in an Amazon world, right, where at the click of a button, right, you have the very next option available, right, possibly would be solving pricing a lot better than what you are solving in terms of price being right, price being comparative, right? So for all the standard options, right, where sellers are engaging with the marketplaces or where suppliers are engaging, listing those products, those catalogs in the marketplaces, expectation would always be that you have to maintain a competitive price. Only those who have got additional channels, right, and it becomes a channel management problem, right? If you just react to one marketplace and on a marketplace you match your product to the competitive price, but on other channels you're still selling at high, it becomes a very, very difficult problem to manage the entire channels, right? So there, what we have essentially recommended or work with sellers on is, right, can you try to differentiate your standard products, right? For example, if you're selling an appliance, can you probably add a bouquet of service? It could be installation, could be warranty, could be 6 months check-in kind of service, so that your standard products becomes more and more non-comparable. So I would say the pricing, the comparative pricing strategy, right, while being economically viable, while being commercially viable, would press all the sellers, all the suppliers to move more towards making their ranges, making their catalog more and more differentiated, either through exclusivity or either through bundling, either through packaging multiple services, so that it becomes difficult for the customers or the buyer of those products and services to compare, and it also fulfills the marketplace perception of not spoiling the marketplace comparative price perception of being expensive always, right? So most of the guys, right, who want to do well while being economically viable have started adopting it in our experience, and I think that change is a change which is here to stay, here to go, here to expand as well. And that would be one of the dominant pricing strategy in case you are a seller, if you're a supplier who have got multiple channels and your marketplace is just one more channel to manage, and you want to be very, very economically viable as well, right, while you're pricing. Second, I would say that too many price changes or too many price changes on the marketplace platform just to react to competition or just to manage your business are also not very, very acceptable to the marketplaces, right? Because it leads to honestly a lot of cancellations, a lot of customer not returning, saying that hey, I got a bad deal, and then suddenly I see a product or I see a same catalog listed at a lot lower price, right? So it's also important to have some stability, some steadiness in the pricing as well, especially more so in the B2B world, right? While doing that, right, some sellers who are worried about their working capital, right, getting freed up early, right, or getting freed up on time, right, it becomes impossible. It becomes important for them to think about introducing much more innovative layers into pricing. That means the pricing may not be a direct discount on your red price or on your list price, right? Rather than that, right, you position your discount in a way which becomes difficult for anybody to understand that you are actually changing prices a lot, right? By for example, getting into offer like buy one get three, buy two get one, or maybe introducing some freebies, some bundles, right, which makes the offer more attractive for the customers and helps you clear your inventory as well. So increasingly these two innovations on the pricing side, right, are the innovations which marketplace and customers which are more accessible to marketplaces and more accessible to customers as well, right? And that's where we are seeing a lot of our suppliers, a lot of our intelligent suppliers who are serious sellers on the marketplace, who want to expand their business in the marketplace, moving to. And that shift is the shift I would see the rest of the globe is also going to see very soon as well. So yeah, that was my that's a couple of observations around the pricing, right? While marketplaces try to push sellers stay competitive, stay at the right price. So these are some of the innovations which sellers have started doing naturally to do that, to stay at pricing. Yeah.
Thanks, Abhishek. Christoph, I know that you have been silent for now, and I know that you are eager to kind of talk about, hey, does it make sense for you being a marketplace or not? So what do you would recommend for the audience, especially if they are thinking about having some sort of a marketplace study? Do you think, can you give them those tips on where do they should start as a supplier or as a seller, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think echoing some of the points that previous or other panelists have said, right? So for instance, what Abhishek said, it's a great place a great way to expand your reach for someone else to take on some of the heavy lifting that you don't necessarily need to build. So it's a great way to possibly start off in a light manner. But again, as some of the other panelists have said, it's not something that you just do lightly. I think to echo what Rick said, right? This needs to be part of a core tenet of your strategy. Whether it's your products that you sell, the product information that Daniel mentioned needs to be really consistent, properly governed. So again, the whole thing is it's not something you just do lightly. It also takes the right set of resources as well to manage, because again, a marketplace needs attention. So whether it's the setting up of it, whether it's the management of it, right, whether it's the pre-sales, post-sales inquiries of customers that might come along, whether it's the actual fulfillment, whether the marketplace helps you do it, or whether you do it yourself. So I think these are all things to keep in account. If again, one of the things too, just as a slight deviation as well to, I guess, the question you've asked, but I just wanted to bring it up, is the whole pricing, especially when you go across different channels. So when you are, as a company, thinking about adding marketplaces as a potential channel or as an additional channel, whether you have a digital channel or not already, pricing is very important. And I have experienced both at my current job as well as previous ones, where if the prices aren't necessarily the same and offline channels, let's call them that, see that your prices on your marketplaces are different or better, especially when it's contract customers who might have higher prices for whatever reason, you're going to face a lot of unhappy colleagues who are going to be asking lots of questions. So I think that's one of the key things, just to expand upon that a bit. And so yeah, so look, in conclusion, it's not something that you tread in lightly. It can be a little bit easier than setting up a whole digital team, but you still need to put effort and attention and funds behind it when you are to consider entering to marketplaces.
And just a follow-up question on that, Chris, if companies do decide to either operate as a marketplace or want to operate in a marketplace, what are those change management that they may have to go through in making sure that, from a team's point of view, how they kind of restructure, how they kind of make sure that they don't take this as lightly, as in there's a concrete strategy behind it?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a change management perspective, I think probably the areas I would focus on is not that it's necessarily a silo, this operation, right? So whether it's a digital team or the marketplace team, whatever you want to call it, this is not a siloed operation where it's just that small subset. It's cross-functional, right? It's everything from the individuals that are in the procurement team to the operations team to the product information team, you name it. And so it does need to have that broad reach, because again, whether you are managing your own fulfillment as well through the marketplace when you get those orders, or whether it's you're working with a marketplace, there still needs to be that cross-functional support. And then also, I think the other parts that, from that perspective, is to have consistent internal processes, so that you standardize them, that you have standard operating procedures written down, so again, that everyone knows what the other parts of the organization are doing, whether it's working with third parties or whether it's internal, because again, that just can create a lot of confusion and adds extra costs, right? The whole point of marketplaces, or parts of it, is to make things more efficient, to save costs. So again, yeah, I think it's the cross-functionality of this whole endeavor, as well as standardization processes, whatever you want to call it. Yep.
Got it. Rick, wanted to get your point of view on the same question, especially on change management. What do you kind of recommend companies to kind of think about when they're kind of reorganizing themselves in operating as operating in a marketplace?
Yeah, no worries. But firstly, what Christoph said. So he covered off quite a few of the points that I was going to make. You absolutely need to resource this. You absolutely have to have standard processes. I think to build on top of that, it's about communication. Cross-functionally, whatever your internal comms strategy, whether that's something that's face-to-face or it's done online. Obviously, everything's being done online these days. You need to be on top of that, but also communications to customers. But I think one of the other things that is maybe more difficult to get to in the early days, but you need to get to quickly, is financial planning. As well, and forecasting and budgeting around the impact that whichever marketplace you're using is going to have. If your strategy is it's Amazon, then okay, what's your market share going to be, or what's the share of your market on this marketplace, and what's that going to do to your long-term profitability? Because obviously your gross margins aren't just a measure on profit. If you're listed, then your profit has a huge impact on valuation, and all of a sudden we're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of impact just by opening a new channel. Potentially, you may get into this and it's something and nothing, but I think a lot of companies are looking at this seriously because there are huge marketplaces out there now. Companies like RS who sell a huge amount of products, and a lot of other organizations that also distribute those kind of products see this as a huge channel opportunity. Back in 2012, when I was at RS, we were talking about whether RS should be a marketplace, and whether we should, build this ecosystem where other vendors could sell their products on our site. That's very much a 2012 question. I think that's gone now. It's 2020. There are lots of marketplaces, and you may as well just outsource this stuff. When you're setting up this kind of project, the question is, do we build it or do we buy it? Well, I don't think you even need to ask that question anymore. I wouldn't be recommending too many companies build their own marketplaces and expect to take on the world right now, because we've moved on. So I think, in terms of answering your question on the change management piece, yes, communication, financial planning, but also I'd probably say buy rather than build.
Got it. Great. Just on interest of time, I'll be so everyone who are attending the conference, you can go ahead and ask your respective questions. We'll be coming to your questions in just a minute or so. So feel free to submit your questions using the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, and we'll be coming to those questions in just a couple of minutes as well. So last question from my side, just from a technology stack changes point of view, right? In terms of, I think we spoke about just general change management, but if you look at technology changes that the companies might have to kind of do to kind of make sure that they are always staying ahead of the game as well as capitalizing. Abhishek, what do you kind of see as some of the core things coming up? I know you have very heavily invested in AI, ML tech stack in the past. So again, very keen to hear from you. What do you think is the right tech stack for companies?
Yeah, right. So, look, if as a marketplace, your core economic moat is, playing on content and transactions, right? Without significant investment in tech, right? It's really difficult to win the game, really, right? And most of the marketplace eventually become the economic moat they try to chase is that itself, right? The content and transaction. That's why technology is so core to all the marketplace, more so for the B2C marketplaces, right? So I would say that a very, very strong embracement of the artificial intelligence, right? Most of these marketplaces, standalone marketplaces, more so are going to become likely a AI company, right? That means they're going to invest in data. E-commerce is a pursuit of data, right? Invest in building all intelligence into the entire customer journey. Also, more intelligence in the entire seller journey, right? Some of the key pain around developing content, developing catalog are going to be taken away through a lot of NLP-based programs, right? Where sellers can imagine that they just have to put a product, right? And the content will be generated automatically, right? And that's the speed to market we are talking about, which most of the marketplaces are investing into, right? And if you are a manufacturer and you want to open your .com, right, it becomes, right, the investment becomes not so viable because the returns are not so great, right, of you doing it significantly, unless until you are sitting on a very high margin product, right? So I would say for all horizontal marketplaces, that embracement of cloud, embracement of AI, ML, natural language processing techniques, right, all these data technologies, right? Then the progressive mobile application technology, right? Mobile, there are every month possibly, right? We see a lot of innovations coming in the mobile app world, right? Especially for a lot of connected systems which operate in the mobile phones, right? We see Google Pay, Apple Pay, right, launching new modules, making the payment journey even more frictionless, right? So you also talk about, right, a lot of light apps, a lot of light M sites being launched, right, which gives customer possibly the same options or similar experience, right, which a mobile app, full-fledged mobile app gives to the customers, right? And that's true for as you penetrate more and you activate a lot of customer who are more sitting in the suburbs with a phone which doesn't have a lot of capacity, right? So all these progressive mobile app technologies, adopting and using that in your core technology investments become critical. Apart from that, a lot of investments one can do to solve core marketplace matchmaking problems around search and discovery, especially if you're playing in a lot of ranges. There's a lot of proliferations of sellers catalog, right? It becomes difficult for customer to discover, locate what he is finding for, what he's looking for, right? customized search, personalized search using MIL techniques becomes very, very critical that time. Not so for B2B, but definitely for B2C, what is becoming a more sunrise is also the voice commerce, the conversational commerce, right? Using, so it, everybody says that the e-commerce battle tomorrow would be the battle of Alexa, Siri, and Google Now, right? And all these three companies would have all the apps in turn listed on them, and you can just talk to them and do whatever you want to do. You want to, get a financial help. You want to, find a product. You want to, build your cart. You want to, call for a warranty service, right? All those could potentially be done by voice-based commerce, right? And that's where most of the companies, big technology companies, are investing, and they're also trying to democratize it, right, by selling it cheap, so that a lot of these young startups, a lot of these new marketplace entrants start adopting them from day one. So I would say that investment on the conversational commerce is also going to be critical if you have to win this game. Apart from that, the payments, right? Payment is one area where changes are happening very fast. If I have to talk about countries like India, right, they have already taken next step in democratizing entire UPI, right, which is uh, which is making payment a lot more frictionless, and all e-commerce companies have quickly adopted to them. Similarly, as I was saying, Google Pay, Apple Pay, they're going to revolutionize the entire payment, right? Probably just through voice, or probably just through your scan of your eyes. As how do you really integrate those technology as well into your marketplaces are going to define your ability to stay relevant and stay attractive to the customers as well, right? So these are some of the technologies, right, or programs, processes, right, apart from usual ones around planning, dynamic pricing, right, which are very core to marketplaces, are going to become very, very important if you want to win the marketplace.
Yeah. Makes sense, absolutely. And just one last question from my side. In terms of how do we see post-COVID world, essentially, especially the changing customer behavior? It's an open question to any of the panelists. Where do you see either your customer going and making purchases? Would that be more, do you feel, happening on your own .com versus going on a marketplace, or you as a distributor, manufacturer, operating more as a marketplace, and so on and so forth? So again, what's your point of view in terms of changing customer behavior in the new normal, essentially?
Yeah, so maybe I can quickly put my points, right? So in general, we have seen, right, of course, the overall, customer adoption for technology, customer adoption for finding it comfortable, trustworthy to shop online has improved post-COVID. And with that, what we have also generally seen is that there's a general flight to value, right? So the customers want more for the same money, right? So that puts a lot of pressure back on the marketplace and sellers who participate on the marketplace to communicate that value, and to definitely innovate also to make that product look valuable as well, right? So the flight to value, right, and with great adoption on that side are two trends, right, which we have noticed, and which we have also noticed over last 8 months, which have helped us change our focus, and which are also helped us get that scale. So I would say these two are there. And third piece, right, which we are still about to validate, is we are finding that customers, right, post COVID are not really looking for a lot of ranges, right? They're looking for narrow range. And again, this coming from the value statement which I said, right? They're looking for more value, not just proliferation of a lot of choices which are available to them, right? They're looking for a narrow range of choices, right, with extremely great value, right? So for a lot of categories which do not lend themselves to the growth on back of selection, right, it becomes important that you narrow yourself and focus more on generating value, innovate in the products to generate value, right, and give that value to the customers. So these are the 3-4 trends, right, which we noticed from our data, right, which is helping us change our direction post COVID.
Great. Any other panelists would like to add on to that, to comment on things that you kind of see in your business with regards to changing customer pattern?
Maybe I can just jump in. I think for us, post-COVID is just an extension and not so much of an acceleration, but it's a continuation of that, of making it possible for our customers to move, more into the digital space. by widening our offering, making sure that they have the their assortment covered, additional functionalities within our channels to offer a more a better customer experience. But for us, I think it's something that we've started on, and it's a major part of our strategy to how we're going to service our customers in the future. So for us, it's just a continuation and building on the sort of the building blocks we have in place, and drive that further into our business and our service to our customers.
I think in the industry that I'm in right now, in the construction industry, which is probably one of the less digitized industries, so to speak, I think what has showcased, with this pandemic is that one better needs to get on the bandwagon for digital. And so again, probably not as prevalent in other industries because digital is a lot further ahead, but there are definitely competitors or even ourselves that we weren't necessarily able to sell as effectively, or again, we took a massive hit, not just from sending individuals home, but if we didn't have the right either digital, our own website or even marketplaces available, that just makes it a challenge to sell. So obviously that's just the sort of the obvious answer there, but it's clearly showcased the need for digital or marketplaces, as well as as what Cecil is saying and what Abhishek is saying, is that it's just accelerated the need, and people are also just more used to purchasing online or have been forced to do it. And so if they have a good experience, and again, if the data is trusted, what some of the other individuals were saying before, then why go back in to driving a far distance to go get the same product if you can just do it online or through a marketplace?
I guess to marry up as well the point that Christoph just made with Cecil's point earlier around incorporating content quality and richness into your velocity metrics. I mean, an anecdote that probably subverts some expectations is you'd think, given some of the nature of like the PPE and the post-COVID products that have been selling, you would think that speed to market would be king, or some people might think that. But we took some products that had just been plopped on the site with the intention of selling volume quickly, and we properly enriched them, taking a full content strategy that you would normally, and just through the increase to findability, without even creating experiences that were powered by that data, we saw like 4-digit percentage sales increase. So the content really is king in terms of enabling something to be findable. So yeah, I think incorporating that rich content requirement into your velocity metrics and making that part of your launch criteria is essential as the digital competency just becomes more and more key.
Great, cool. Thank you so much, panelists. I think this has been definitely a great, interesting conversation to and through. I know we are on top of the hour again. I know that the answer still remains that for a vendor, distributor, channel partner, do you want to still continue to spend significantly on your own e-store? Do you want to continue to launch your either own marketplace? Do you want to partner with other marketplace for testing out some of the niche or super marketplace that we have, or even Amazon, or kind of work with other form of digital selling? And maybe the answer for most of this may be all of the above, essentially. But yeah, I know there are a lot of pointers that you guys have kind of explained for the audience. And again, thank you so much for sharing your experience today. And with that, we'll be closing today's panel discussion. Again, thank you for the panelists. I know it's being different time zones working in. So thank you again for being participant, and again for the audience to be patient for the panelists and inputs, and hope there are some key takeaways that you are able to take away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.